Okay, so let us first discuss the different ethical issues which are there in our electronic media. There has been a boom of television channels for the past 20 years in Pakistan. It was in 2000 when Geo News was launched, and since then we see that every year there are different television channels which are being launched. These include all variety of channels. There are news-based channels and we have entertainment-based channels where mostly you will see dramas and all. Not really producing content as such for children and for Nat Geo and HBO. All these are international channels, but we see them here in Pakistan. Why is that? Because they have the right to uplink their transmission in Pakistan, and there are different organizations that don't have their own channels, but they provide the service of uplinking. So these are all the channels. A lot of channels in Pakistan. If you will just switch on to your television, you can see that there are all different kinds of channels, local ones, regional language channels, and of course there is going to be PTV and all these different governmental channels as well. Now with this boom of electronic media and there are so many channels, there is a good side to it and then there is a bad side to it. The good part is that we have a variety to see a lot of different kind of programmings, entertainment, infotainment, sports, documentaries, music and whatnot. But the flip side is that most of these channels, if we can say so, most of these channels are not really following the ethical guidelines that they should follow. And I'm not just talking about the rules and regulations. I mean, rules and regulations they have to follow anyway, but as far as the total ethical scenario of the country is concerned, they are not really following it to the T. And this is not something which is a problem only here in Pakistan. This is the problem all over the world. But in a country like Pakistan, where the literacy rate is not that good, I think it is a huge responsibility of electronic media and television channels specifically to really educate our people and to show programs which will not only just entertain them but give them information in a right way, educate them and make them a better citizen. Okay, while discussing ethics, a better way for us would be to divide it in two parts. So first part is going to be news channels and the second part is going to be non-news channels. And when I talk about non-news channels, that would include all the entertainment based channels, the drama ones, and of course other channels as well. So let us first talk about news channels. You know that there are a lot of news channels in Pakistan and most of them are providing us up-to-date information of what is happening in the country and around the world. But most of them are not really following all the ethics that they should follow. All the journalists, there are certain ethics that all the journalists should follow. The first thing is that they should be very accurate. The information that they should provide us, it should be very accurate. There should not be any rumor in it. But what we see in Pakistan, that journalists are the biggest rumor mongers themselves. Then our journalists should be very objective. They should do objective reporting. They should do objective analysis of the situation, and they should be very impartial, which again is not the case with our journalists. We see that our journalists, specifically some senior anchor persons, are there who openly take sides and they are very biased. So that is something which is quite unethical. Then there is another problem which is quite rampant in our news industry, is that defamation is something that our journalists do very casually. They defame personalities and they try to ridicule people and they try to spread rumors around them and discuss different controversies around different public personalities without thinking of its consequences. In the West, people actually file cases against such journalists on a regular basis. Here in Pakistan, that is not the case. So we see journalists doing defamation of public personalities, of common people, of courts and honorable judiciary, and they don't really follow the ethics over there. Then there is another problem with the journalists, that whenever they are covering different issues which are related to sensitive topics, or which might be crime stories or a story related to an accident, they often go overboard. So sensationalizing is something which is there in our journalism a lot. When you see television channels, you will realize it, that while covering a crime story, they will say names of different victims. So generally it is said that names of victims should not be given, but our journalists do so. And similarly, at times they ask really stupid questions to the victims and their families, and that is something which really leaves a bad taste. So they should not do that for sure. A thing which a journalist can probably say while in a low tone and in a proper way, we often see that they just to make it interesting for the viewer, they use words which are very sensational. At times you will see news reports in which they will play songs and they will use rhyming words, and all of that is because they want to capture more and more eyeballs, but to be honest, all of that is unethical. And also, just overall, if we see, there is this competition that who is going to break the news fast and all these things, that all of that is basically leading to a very substandard journalism. In Pakistan, journalists are working in a very hostile environment. It's not that it's easy for journalists to work in Pakistan. There has not been supportive governments, and there are a lot of factors that somehow or other stop or try to stop journalists from reporting about different topics. But as far as your daily beats are concerned and your daily topics are concerned, crime stories, economy, sports, entertainment, politics, they should try to follow certain standard, which unfortunately our journalists are not following. So these are different problems that we often see with the journalists in Pakistan. Now, why is it happening in news channels? The first thing is that there is this very unhealthy rating race that our journalists are running at the moment. All the news channels are running at the moment, and that race is that who is going to break the news first, who is going to get the exclusive news, who is going to get more eyeballs, which means more viewers when they are going to report about an ongoing issue. So that rating race, which you often probably have heard about as well, that the TRP game is very strong, and all the channels are basically running that race. And while doing so, they often just get the news and they break it without even confirming it, without even looking at the different perspective that how that news is going to affect the society, how the reaction is going to be. Is it going to be something very violent? The words that they are using at times are very strange, but then again, when you are a reporter and you have this compulsion on you that you have to break your news as and when you get it, so the poor reporter doesn't get a chance to actually confirm it. And that is because, of course, the management want that we are the first ones who are going to break the news. You often see these news channels, they are always projecting things like हमने सबसे पहले खबर ब्रेक की है, फलाना खबर हमने सबसे पहले आपने जियो न्यूज़ पे देखी या ARY पे देखी या एक्सप्रेस पे देखी. So वो जो एक overall system है, that is something which is really hampering the journalism in Pakistan. So unhealthy rating race, the TRP game is very strong in our channels, and that is quite okay. This breaking news culture actually leads towards another problem, which is lack of fact checking in our electronic media, because it happens that when you have to break news very fast, you just don't really fact check it, and you spread misinformation and disinformation, and you just send the report ahead. Your channel head or the news editor which might be sitting will also not check the news properly, and they will also get it on air as quickly as possible. So fact checking is something which is a huge concern these days in social media, because of all these WhatsApp forwards and Twitter and retweets and Insta live and all these things. People really want to gain a lot of followers, so social media users do that at time, that they just forward news without fact checking it. But then that is social media. At least electronic media, our mainstream news channels should be good enough that they should verify the news for when it first come to them, and they should check whether it is factually correct or not. So lack of fact checking is again something which is there in our electronic media, and that is another aspect of basically the breaking news culture, because they don't have much time. They want to break the news fast, and in that process they don't check the news whether it is factually correct or incorrect. Then there is another thing which is hurting our electronic media a lot, is the political affiliations. So all these big channels that we see, their head honchos or the administration, or the owners of these channels, they have their own political affiliations, and most of the time they don't rise above those affiliations, and they blandly support the political parties that they are supporters of, even in their programs, which should not be the case. So any person who follows news know very well that which channel is going to follow which agenda. So if it's ARY news, which agenda are they going to follow, and if it's Geo news, what agenda are they going to follow. So you can easily point that out. So unfortunately they are not able to rise above that as well. They are following their political affiliations. Other than the political affiliations, all these channels also have their commercial interests or commercial affiliations as well. So it often happens in Pakistani media that if there is a news about a huge industrialist, or maybe a business tycoon, or a real estate tycoon for that matter, so our media is not going to show that news in a proper way. They are going to try to curb that news somehow, or to not really sensationalize it the way they sensationalize other news with politicians and all. And the reason behind is that they are bound by their commercial interest. So it's not just the political agenda that the media is following, they also have their commercial interest and their commercial agenda. If there is a multinational which is giving millions in ads, so the chances are that channels are not going to break any news about them which might be detrimental to their business. Another problem which has cost us a lot in the past few years is that certain journalists and anchor persons actually promote hatred and racism in their shows, and that is just careless journalism, to be honest, because we have suffered a lot in the past many years because of this attitude of certain journalists, that they invite hate mongers on their shows, and they don't even look at the situation of the country. We have seen that in the past when right after APS attack, certain journalists invited people from TTP until unless PEMRA had to stop them, and we have seen that at many different places, at many different occasions, that our journalists have invited such certain people, and even if they have not invited people who promote racism, through their own analysis, certain anchor persons and certain journalists tend to promote certain kind of racism or hatreds towards particular communities, specifically minorities in our country, which should not be the case at all. So that is a huge problem, and that is something which should be condemned at all levels. Let us now look at the entertainment channels, or the channels which don't provide news. So these include channels which might on-air dramas, and then there are some channels which play music all the time, and there are some channels which are sports-based channels. The main problem that we can see right now in these channels is that there is a lack of variety of programs. I mean, there are many programs, but still if we compare it from the West, we'll see that we don't have channels that actually promote critical thinking. We don't have channels that show documentaries and programs like Net Geo shows. We don't have channels that give really good sports programming. I mean, cricket is there, but there are a lot of sports which are played in Pakistan, and that you won't see in any television channel. Then there is this whole digital revolution that somehow there are channels have not been able to follow. We know that people are now switching to Netflix and Amazon Prime and different other digital platforms for the sake of entertainment, but if we come and see our own channels here in Pakistan, we'll see that they are following the same old themes and the same old methods of making entertainment and producing entertainment shows. So that is a huge concern. The dramas that is somehow the staple of Pakistan's entertainment industry, they are not providing us anything unique and innovative. What they are doing, they are trying to follow the same old themes and same old routines of, you know, family feuds and saas bahu ke jhagde and things like this. Somehow we are still, our dramas are much better than what our neighboring countries producing, but we are slowly following their path, and that is a bad thing. So that is something that should be looked at. Another problem with these dramas is the way they portray women. So the portrayal of women is quite troublesome in these dramas, to be honest, because what they are showing mostly is that women who is mostly the central character in these dramas, and I don't know why is that, but anyway, that woman is always the bechari types, and the one who is going to always, you know, stick in the house, do all the work and listen to all the taunts of the saas and the nuns and all, and she is not going to say the word. So that is a problematic portrayal, because you are showing a very vulnerable side of women. And in the same drama they will show a girl or a woman who is a working woman, and in that woman, what they will show that, you know, she is so independent that she is not listening to anybody, and she is perhaps most of the time, in almost 80% of the dramas, that working woman is going to be the vamp, and the gharelu bechari woman is going to be the main protagonist or the heroine, as we call it. So portrayal of women is something which is quite problematic in our dramas these days. That is changing. I mean, there are certain dramas which have been really good, and then there are certain dramas which actually tackle different socially relevant issues, but the thing is that that needs to be changed, because majority of dramas, around 80% of them, are basically showing this problematic view of women. So that is a huge concern. Okay, so there might be certain problems with the dramas, Pakistani dramas, but if we really talk about problem, perhaps the biggest concern should be for the morning shows. We all know that on all different entertainment channels at 9 a.m. every day we see morning shows in which these anchor persons or these morning show hosts, which are very popular and they are household names, they appear, and these morning shows are showing certain things in the name of entertainment that are truly objectionable. And although they get very good ratings and they have a huge following, and they always have this excuse that, see, we are getting these much ratings, so it's not that really that people really don't like what we show them. Of course there are certain strata of the society that is going to like them, but it is all about how we are going to feed the society, how we are going to provide them things that is going to promote certain level of intellectualism in our societies. But when we switch on to these morning shows, what we see are fashion parades, where we'll just see that, you know, how you have to do makeup, how you have to dress up, and their target audience is something which probably can't even afford that brands that they are talking about in those shows. Recently there have been this incident where one of the morning show hosts started showing her shopping that she did from a holiday somewhere from London or Paris, I don't know, but that is something that she was showing in a morning show. At the same time, we often see that, you know, there might be some kind of an Amil Baba in the show, and he will tell you how to get rid of Kala Jadoo and all, and then there might be shows where they will have families who will be fighting in a live show, and all other times they will just do weddings on the show. I don't know what is this fascination with weddings are, but all these morning shows hosts are mainly doing weddings, and you know, they are doing mehndi in their show and then shadis in their shows. So that is quite problematic, and that is something which has been which has been a concern for all the different people. Civil society has talked about it. PEMRA has given them directives a lot of time, but we often see that they are back to the same theme. So morning shows, apart from dramas, dramas are still better 100 times, but morning shows are a huge concern when we talk about the entertainment channels here in Pakistan. So what we have seen is that there are many ethical issues in our television channels. News channels have their own issues and entertainment channels have their own issues. We should be able to give them certain solutions, that how they can make things better and how they can make things work, and probably they can improve their programming in some way. So there are certain suggestions and certain solutions that we should be able to provide them in this regard. Number one thing is that the management of these news channels, they should be the ones who should be more responsible to ensure that all the staff, everybody working in the newsroom, to anchor persons, to camera persons, and everybody should be able to follow the ethical guidelines. We have seen that there are certain media houses in Pakistan who have their own code of conducts, and their journalists and people who work for them follow those code of conducts, but most of them don't have any code of conduct. They just don't follow. They don't have their own written code of conduct. You cannot access it on their website. It is not there anywhere because they have not made one. So first thing first, that the management should take the initiatives. All these channel owners who are making millions out of these channels, they should be the ones who should basically try to make ethical guidelines, and they should be the ones who should ensure that their staff follows those guidelines. Another thing which must be there is that there should be some kind of industry and academia linkages. So what should really happen, that there should be proper industry and academia linkages where industry people or media channel owners or news editors, they can contact different universities and HEC and different civil organizations, and they should ensure that journalists should be trained. Apart from the journalistic training, they should be trained in covering news in a proper manner, in an impartial manner, giving their point of view in a way which should not look biased, and fact checking the news before they go out and just break that news. And similarly it should work for the entertainment channels as well. So entertainment channels or news channels, both of them should work with the industry, with the academia in some way or the other. That is very important. Another thing that journalists should perhaps follow at their personal level is that if they just follow the process of news reporting to the T, that will ensure that a lot of things which can make the news biased, which can make them sound partial, or which might spread misinformation or disinformation or fake news, that is something which will be eliminated by default. Because if we look at the process of news reporting itself, that is a very wholesome process. They should first research about the topic that they are going to cover, then they should investigate about it and look at it from all the different contexts, and make sure that they should consider all the different interpretations that that piece of news might have when it will finally get on aired. So that will be the process. If they will just follow it to the T, if they will look at the context of the interpretations, how the reactions are going to be, and of course they are going to investigate the news and make sure that only pick up the facts which are not really rumors, or they don't really sensationalize things. So if they just follow that reporting process to the T, even that is going to make a huge difference in the entire ethical domain of our journalistic practices. As far as our entertainment channels are concerned, all they need to do, that they should probably reach out to new writers and new people, or even if there are the similar old writers, they should try to find new themes for their television dramas. A lot of them are doing that already, which is a good sign, but they should try to find out themes which might be very interesting for our viewers, because right now family feuds are not the only things which is of interest of the viewers. So they can make shows which might be about thriller shows, they can make shows which would be fantasy based shows, animation, and even they can discuss things like religion and religious harmony in their shows, and all these things are quite important. So probably our channels and specifically drama writers need to look at all the different themes. As far as morning show hosts are concerned, they should also try to find topics which are of interest of people, but at the same time they are important to address, because how you can dress well is of course a good thing for self-help, and weddings are a huge part of our society and our culture, and you can discuss that, but you cannot discuss that 8 months out of the 12 months. So what you need to do, that they should be able to discuss topics which might be related to our civil responsibilities, different laws that people should know and people should follow, what are our rights as citizens of Pakistan, what are the heroes of Pakistan, specifically people from the newer generation. They should try to invite them in their shows and introduce them to the viewers, and they should probably look back at the different historical events in the country and try to interpret them and make it interesting for people, so they can educate people through their shows, they can entertain people through their shows, and they should try to look out for these different things instead of having a wedding and just keep running it for a month. They should come up with new topics every week or every day, and that should serve the purpose. What I'm going to do, that I have made a Padlet, and I'll show you that Padlet as well. I'll give you its link, and I have added different links of the programs where you can see these unhealthy practices of our electronic media and our journalists. So you can just watch those videos and you will find out for yourself that what I'm talking about when I talk about these TRB games and unethical practice and not really following decency and morality limits as far as electronic media is concerned.